I actually want to start off by acknowledging, yes, Women's History Month, right? I mean, I know if it wasn't for a woman, I would not be alive, right? So I'd like to mention something that Women's History Month recognizes and celebrates women's often overlooked contributions to history, culture, and society, honoring women's struggles, achievements, and ongoing fight for equality. And as some of you may know, this has been going on for a while, right? I want to mention some key dates that I thought were interesting. As you most likely know, it didn't start with a whole month, right? It started with a single day. And this traces back to the early labor movements, yes. The 1857 garment workers' protest that started sparking the idea for Women's Day. And in 1909, the first Women's Day was held on February 28th, which would have been yesterday, 117 years ago. Just think about that. Now, in 1911, the inaugural International Women's Day was celebrated on March 19th in Europe. And it gets better. In 1917, women in Russia, of all places, famously went on strike for bread and peace. And this was on March 8th, which all triggered actually the Russian Revolution, believe it or not, at that time, and solidified the date for the holiday. Now, in 1975, the United Nations had decided to have the year be the International Women's Year. So for the first time, the United Nations celebrated International Women's Day for the first time on that year. But there's more. Now we go from the day to a whole week. So it begins in 1978. 1978. The idea started with Sonoma County, California's Education Task Force planning a Women's History Week around the International Women's Day, which was March 8, of course, highlighting women's roles. And in 1980, they got national recognition. A coalition led by the National Women's History Project successfully lobbied for national recognition, with President Jimmy Carter issuing for the first proclamation for National Women's History Week. And as you see now, we have the whole month. And this happened in 1987. After continued annual proclamations, Congress passed the public law officially designating March as Women's History Month. And that's well deserved, isn't it? And if you've been watching the news, especially about the Olympics, we know that there's still work to do, right? I mean, just a little thing that I happened to come upon, that not only did the men's hockey team win the gold, but so did the women, right? Unfortunately, I'm going to say, the goalkeeper for the men's team got, I believe it was the Freedom Medal, for not having let more than 5 goals past his net, when the women's goalkeeper only let 2. Think about that. And that's as political as I want to get right now. So you might be actually wondering why I'm wearing this stole. And in all honesty, I kind of missed it, that I should have been wearing this last month for Black History Month. But I thought, you know what, I can still do it for this month because of being Women's History Month. And that is because the school for Unity that I went to is called the Unity Urban Ministerial School, and it was founded by an African American woman. After she went through her ministerial schooling at Unity, she wanted to bring the message of Unity a little closer to the people, make it a little more accessible. So, because she was living in Detroit, that's where she started the school. That's where the school actually still is officially. And it just so happens that I'm going to call it the honor of having graduated and been ordained through the Urban Ministerial School. And that's why I am glad to wear this. And this was actually not from Unity or even directly from the school. It was one of our colleagues that had this material. Somebody brought it legitimately from Africa, and they decided to make these stoles for us. So now, us that get ordained through Unity Ministerial School get one of these besides the regular Unity. So just thought I'd give you a little extra history there. So getting back to what we're talking about this, I'm going to call it this month. I'm going to start by reminding you that today is the second Sunday of Lent. By show of hands, we're all family here, right? Who is fasting from anything that they wish not to be? Okay, I see one brave person, a couple more, okay. So we know that fasting is letting go of things that we no longer want, right? And part of that fasting actually helps us to see clearly, right? But what is to see clearly? Seeing clearly is not just about your eyes and how much you see or what you can see in the world. You may or may not know this, I'm sure you all do, that in truth, we don't really see through our eyes, right? Why? Because in truth, our mind controls what we see and how we see it. Does anybody agree with me on that? I think you've all heard and I may have said it here also already. To give you an example, if 7 people witness an accident, how many stories are there? 7, right? Because we are, we may have 14 actually, right? Because it changes. So, because we actually, and I want to quote, I'm pretty sure it was Eric Butterworth who said, "We see the world not as it is, but as we are." I think that landed, right? I'll repeat that again. We see the world not as it is, but as we are. So I would suggest that from now on, when you go around the world and you think somebody's not agreeing with you because they don't see things the way you do, maybe to have a little more understanding, a little more compassion, I'm going to say. Because that person is seeing the world through their eyes, just the way you're seeing the world through your own eyes. And yes, it depends on your upbringing, your beliefs, your biases. I mean, we see that, I'm going to say every day, right? You know, if you're on this side is the most awful people in the world, and vice versa, right? I truly believe that if we consciously begun to start thinking more along the lines of, why am I being triggered by this person or by this activity? What is it in me that is showing me that mirror? What do I need to learn? What do I need to be going within for so that I can understand it better? Now, Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore told us that seeing clearly is the result of shifting one's focus from outer appearances to inner realities. He thought that when one stops judging by appearances and aligns with divine mind, one sees clearly. Now, you might be asking, how do we do that? Well, thank you for asking. Well, as Charles Fillmore mentions, we need to go within. Now, how many here have an idea how to go within? Anybody want to shout it out? Prayer, right? Prayer, meditation. Guess what? We practice this in Unity, don't we? That's our fourth principle. Now, how do we see prayer in Unity? Prayer is not about asking and begging for things to be as we would like them to be, right? The way we see prayer in Unity is we want to align our minds with divine mind. And the way we do that, yes, is when we're going into prayer and meditation, we go into the silence. We might get insights as to what it is that we are supposed to do, even what it is that we are supposed to say. I like to go through my talk, have the notes ready, but I also like to step back and spirit whatever it is that I am supposed to say, may it come out through my mouth. And even if it doesn't, Spirit works in wondrous ways, doesn't it? You may have heard other guest speakers or ministers talk about how they went through the whole talk, and it has happened to me too. And after the service, somebody mentions what a wonderful message, and they specify something that they loved that you said. And I go back in my mind and through my notes, and I'm like, I'm not sure that I said that exactly, but I'm glad you got that message. That is Spirit talking to you. And in some odd way, yes, Spirit was talking through me, and even though I may not have said those exact words, you heard what you were meant to hear. Does that make sense? Wonderful. So the next thing we want to do, as Fillmore says, is do not judge by appearances, right? Consider the example, of course, of the accident, right? If you see something and you think this is exactly how it happened, consider that somebody else may have witnessed it differently. And it might be just a little subtle change, but because of your biases or your beliefs, you saw whatever you saw in a certain way, and the other person will have seen totally different. I'll try to make it brief. I'm reminded of back in New York, during the weekends for a while I was driving what we call the gypsy cabs, which I think that's kind of like the before Uber and Lyft, because people would call into the base and then you would go pick them up. You could not pick them up on the street the way a yellow cab does. And I had picked up these couple of girls that were going somewhere, and it was a day that was snowing and the road is slippery, so I'm trying to be careful. And I could see in the back mirror, I'm gonna call him this young guy in his souped-up Camaro, weaving all over the place, trying to get past people in this snow. I mean, the road was full of snow. It had not been cleaned yet or anything, fresh snow. And sure enough, figured, he goes right up to me and hits me on the side. Long story short, luckily, the owner of the base knew the dad of the kid, and they arranged things, whatever. It just so happens a week or two later, I happened to pick up one of the same girls. And she remembered me. And she thought it was my fault that we had gotten into the accident. And I say that because when we stopped, it turned out that she was friends with the guy that was driving the Camaro. And she really thought it was my fault. Go figure, right? Of course, I had to explain myself at that point, but whatever. Now, another thing we could do is to let go of our own personality, our own ego. Now, yes, we mentioned here that it's good to have some ego, right? That's what gets us through the world. But how do we get rid of the ego so that we can see more clearly? Same old, same old. Keep listening to Divine Spirit. Keep going into meditation. And whatever thoughts, whatever intuitions you get, move forward with them. Take action on them. And if you say, but how do I know if it's just my mind talking or what I'm supposed to be truly listening from Divine Spirit? I'm just going to say it'll come with practice. The more you practice your prayer and meditation, the easier it will be for you to kind of have that sense, that true feeling that whatever comes for you is for you to do. Now, for the most part, and you've heard this before, it'll come not as a thunder, not as a big gust of wind, but as a still, small voice, right? That's why we need to be conscious to listen to that. And when you're doing your prayer and meditation, you may not get anything, but try to be aware throughout your week when you get a little something that tells you do this or do that. I've mentioned times before here where I've been on the roads to get somewhere and I knew how to get there, to go to the main roads, make a right turn and do all that. And right before getting there, the block before, I just had this nudge, make a right over here. And it didn't make any sense to me. It was gonna take me longer. It's through a residential neighborhood, but I did it anyway. When I came back out to the main street, as I'm making a right to keep going where I was going, I'm looking to the left, and it was a pileup of traffic because there had been an accident. So first of all, I was not delayed. I don't think it would have been me in the accident because apparently it had happened a few minutes before. But it's just those little things that you need to listen to. You're gonna witness something after the service that something told me do it anyway, even though I haven't done it in ages, and that's all I'm gonna tell you right now. So yeah, as you're doing this, how many have heard of the second coming of Christ? Anybody? Okay, I hope you do, right? Now, for the most part, we have been taught that the second coming of Christ is about Jesus coming again and judging everyone and all that. In unity, metaphysically, we like to think of it as the second coming of Christ is when you become aware of your own Christ consciousness. Does that sit well with everybody? Anybody that would rather not? So think about that. Our own Christ consciousness. I mean, Jesus himself told us. He came to show us the way. He didn't say, nowhere in the Bible does it say, worship me, does it? I dare anybody to look through every single word in the Bible, and if you find it, let me know. So yeah, just let Jesus be your guide. Go into prayer and meditation always We hear about Jesus going up to the mountains to pray, to be alone. And actually, this second Sunday of Lent, I almost said Advent, of Lent, the church normally talks about the transfiguration of Jesus, when he takes 3 of his disciples up to the mountains, and then this light shines on him, and they see him talking to Moses and Elijah. Why not have your own transfiguration? Keep praying, keep meditating. Know that whatever it is that you are to do, it will come your way. And going back to Eric Butterworth, I like to quote him from his book, Discover the Power Within, about seeing clearly. And we read, man is not in the world to set it right, but to see it rightly. Think about that. Let me repeat that one again. Man is not in the world to set it right, but to see it rightly. And right seeing is the passport from illusion to the heaven of accomplishment. Now, if you know anything about A Course in Miracles, A Course in Miracles tells us that we are living in an illusion here in this world, that we're really living a dream. And if you kind of follow these examples about how we see the way we are and not the way the world is, maybe the world really is an illusion, because the world I witness is not the same world you are witnessing. We're making up our own world as we go. That's why we call ourselves co-creators, right? Co-creators with God. Let me continue. If you want to change the world or to be an influence for such a change, you must begin within yourself. And we've been talking about that. By changing the way you see the world. Get back to the principle of a whole universe, a whole man. To me, this means that we need to remind ourselves that we are living in oneness. We truly are just experiencing, I'm going to follow with the A Course in Miracles, we're experiencing an illusion that we are separate from each other. That's why we talk about when you do something for somebody else, you're truly doing it for yourself. When you help somebody else, who feels better? The other person or you? I like to think that you, the person that does the giving, tends to feel better. And I know some of us, a lot of us are here that are more givers than receivers. So I like to remind you, we need to complete the cycle. It's not just about giving and giving and giving, because then you deplete yourself, right? So learn to receive. When you receive, you are allowing that person to experience the pleasure of giving for themselves. Does that make sense? I'm glad you agree with me on that. So when you begin to see clearly, remember that it's not about hoping or expecting that all challenges, all pain, all strife disappear. It is about learning to dance with them. Yes, when you follow divine guidance, you may think that nothing ever is going to go wrong again for you. Does anybody believe that? I didn't think so. But the truth is, we learn also that when we go through challenges, through hard times, for the most part, I'm just speaking for myself, those times that have challenged me the most have given me the best lessons, right? I mean, I like to think so. If it hadn't been for all the issues I had growing up, my upbringing, having to leave my home country of Colombia when I was 13, moved to the U.S., not knowing the language at all, even though I had taken English as one of my classes the last couple of years before I left Colombia. When somebody spoke to me for the first time, I couldn't even remember how to say the words, "I do not speak English." All that came out of my mouth was, "No English." And after I said that, I'm like, really? I can't even remember how to say that? But anyway, so yeah, have this second Sunday be your Sunday of transfiguration. Go within. Listen to your inner voice, to your inner self, to your Christ consciousness. And yes, when you go around the world, do not judge by outer appearances. Step back and ask yourself, what is the lesson in me for this that I am experiencing? Why am I having a trigger moment with this situation, with this person? And by the same token, let go of your ego. Let go that you are always right. And be open to listening to others, to see what their world is like. So work on experiencing that second coming for yourself, to see the Christ consciousness come to you so that you can see clearly through the eyes of God, through the eyes of your Christ within. And yes, whatever it is that you are guided to do, whatever gifts you're bringing, share them always with those around you. And you will be blessed, and you will truly see clearly. Thank you. Let's go into meditation. If you wish to close your eyes, let's just relax right where you are. Maybe start noticing your body. Maybe focus on your feet right now, just how they land on the floor there. Just feel them. Maybe focus on your hands right now, your fingers. Maybe wiggle your fingers a little bit to bring your attention to the here and now. Feel your spine against the seat. And just keep relaxing right where you are. Now I want you to bring your attention to your heart, our center of love, of connection. And bring into your mind a loved one, a loved pet, a situation that brings you joy, or even a place that you love to go to and feel at one with nature. Don't just think about it. Feel that feeling right now in your heart, how it feels when you are experiencing at the moment. We know that the mind doesn't know the difference between what you are experiencing in the physical and what you are thinking about and feeling into at the moment. Keep holding on to that feeling. I'd like you to bring your attention to your third eye, which is connected to our power of imagination. And just imagine a glow of bright white light of the divine consciousness shining in you and slowly going through every part of your body, through every cell of your body, healing every cell, lightening every cell, invigorating every cell in your body. Keep holding on to that feeling and imagining that bright white light shining through through your whole body, from head to toe, and let it extend from you, knowing that it's multiplying with everyone that is here in this room, gaining strength, gaining power. And now let's send this bright white light of peace, of compassion, of understanding, of healing to our city around us, to the country, all over the globe, giving light to those that are considered to be in power. But we know that the true power comes from within. Let's keep sending this energy of love, of compassion, of peace, of strength around the globe as we go into the silence. I am the Holy One, walking the perfect journey. I am awake and holy. My heart is full, my mind is free. I am. Will you repeat with me? I am the light. Together. I am the light. And as we come back into the room, take this feeling, this energy, this love with you wherever you go the rest of the day, the rest of the week, blessing all those around you. And so it is. Amen.